Assalamualaikum and good evening. Today we from Group 9 are going to present our SEL, okay, FSA-EMS 14001. So these are our group members. We have Siti Nurhanani, Khairul Azli, and me myself, Muhammad Rafi Azwan. So I will start my part first. Okay, first I will start with the chemical storage management, which there's a few points I will explain. The key responsibilities, the legal framework, hazard identification and communication, chemical hazard, setting and design of storage area, and the warehouse management. Okay, first of all, the key responsibilities. The key responsibilities are divided into the warehouse owner, the warehouse keeper, and the supplier. So the warehouse employer or the owner need to provide and maintain plant systems that are safe. Also plan the safe use, the operation, the handling of the transportation of the plant. Need to provide the information, the instructions, training, and supervision for his employees at work, and provide and maintain the working environment for his employees. And then the supplier or the owner of the chemicals need to have the competency to undertake the storage required with the suitability of the warehouse, and need to give the advance notice to the warehouse keeper of the requirement, and ensure that warehouse keeper acknowledge the information on hazards, safe handling, and instruction to be followed. And last, they need to ensure the emergency arrangement are adequate for inspection. Last, warehouse keeper need to take responsible, reasonable care for the safety and health of himself and other person, cooperate with the employee or the person in charge or in duty required imposed on the player and the employer, and wear any protective equipment, okay, for purpose preventing any risk, and comply with any instruction given by his employer. And next, the legal framework is based on the Occupational Safety and Health 1997, which they need to label the container with prescribed information. Also based on the Occupational Safety Health 2000, which involving the permissible exposure limits, which conduct chemical head risk assessment. Okay, need to provide the information, sufficient information on the hazard. And lastly, the Occupational Safety and Health 1996, which the premise, this is based on the premise with specified quantities of chemical that are stored or used. Next, the hazard identification and communication. So there are three, the CSDS, Chemical Safety Data Sheet. So Chemical Safety Data Sheet is to provide the information for the hazardous chemicals. Okay, need to based on the identity, the relevant hazard information and precaution. Okay, for the classification, labeling, and relabeling, because the chemicals need to be stored to be classified, okay, and labeled. So the details are referred to the occupational safety and health guidelines. And next, the chemical register. So the employer of the workplace have the chemical hazardous should maintain a chemical register, and also consists of the chemical inventory and the CSDS for all the listed chemicals. And next, the chemical hazard. We are familiar with this kind of, they have some symbol like the explosive, where may explode under effect of flame or more sensitive to shocks, need to be situated far away from other buildings, okay, to minimize the damage. And then the oxidizing hazard, which that give rise to highly exothermic reaction or when in contact with any chemicals, particularly the flammable one, and also need to be stored near, not near combustible chemicals. Next, the flammable groups. Of course, flammable means that it can grow rapidly once the flammable liquids container is breached, and the solid that can ignite by brief contact with source of ignition, sensitive to friction, and then the gases that are flammable in the air at normal pressure are classified as highly flammable. Next, the toxic chemicals means that harmful by any contact with the chemicals, so prevent it from contact, from inhale the gases or ingest the gas. And this chemical also should be avoided from contact with the heat, acid, and moisture. And if any very toxic chemicals and carcinogens should be stored in ventilated storage area in unbreakable secondary container. And last, corrosive means usually acids is corrosive, the alkali, and other chemicals will cause high degree burns actually and cause some irritation on our skins, membranes, or eyes. And sometimes it's necessary to store corrosive and poisonous liquid in special types of container. And next, the seating and design of storage area. So seating means the warehouse itself. The storage area is away from any densely populated area, from any drinking sources, okay, from any places that have liable to be flood, and of course the external sources of hazard. And the site layout as the picture. So the separation of material use of the buildings must be acceptable in precaution to should permit safe movement and transport of material. Then outdoor storage, some chemical are stored in outdoor storage because of to high temperature that may lead to some thermal degradation. So careful selection need to be done because this is far more important. And to avoid any contamination with the soil, with the water table, the storage area should be surfaced with heat and water resistant material. The security, of course, protected from any trespassers with the secure fence or gates. And the design of warehouse need to be provision for emergency exit. The floor, the volume of storage should be limited by compartmentalizing the building. So because this is important to allow any necessary segregation or of incompatible hazardous chemicals. So should be closed, incapable of being locked. And also the construction material of the warehouse should be non-flammable, and the frame of the building itself should be reinforced concrete or steel. And next, the warehouse management. Some factors need to be taken to ensure the management is on top level. So the controlling chemical hazard, how the warehouse operates, the storage plan, the chemicals separation and segregation, the first aid facilities, the training for the employees, and then the emergency when spillage and leakage containment is happen, and of course the waste disposal that Khaira Aziz will go further.
Okay, next is the chemical waste management. Okay, next. Next. Okay, there are 4 steps in chemical waste management. The first one is waste determination. Second is waste minimization. Third, how to manage and contain the waste. And lastly, how to properly dispose of chemical waste. Typo. Next. Okay, for waste determination, there are 2, which is solid waste and hazardous waste. Which is for solid waste is solid, semi-solid, liquid, sludge, or contain gas that is no longer needed or to be discarded. For hazardous waste is a solid waste that is listed by the EPA or exhibit 1 or more of 4 characteristics, which is ignitable, corrosive, reactive, and toxic. Next. Okay, next is the waste minimization, which is includes source reduction practices that reduce or eliminated waste generation and environmentally sound recycling practice. For source reduction, any practice that reduce any quantity or toxicity of pollutant entering a waste stream prior to recycling, treatment, and disposal. For example, in maintenance, equipment, or technology modification and reformulation. Next. The next one is recycling, which is include the use, reuse, and or reclamation of waste residuals that may be designated as a hazardous waste or material in hazardous waste. Okay, so how can you minimize the waste? So first is order only enough amount of chemical. Second, avoid storing excess chemical. Third, share unneeded chemical. Fourth, keep chemical properly labeled. So why we need to do this all step? Because the minimization of waste can help and reduce the cost, increase the productivity and process efficiency, improve workplace safety, and improve the environment quality. Next. Okay, next, how to manage and contain waste. The first one is the satellite accumulation area, which is all container of hazardous waste must be stored in designated areas such as satellite accumulation area, which is SAA, and must be established in area. SAA must be established in area where the waste was under direct control of the individual who generated the waste. So the condition of the waste container: first, it must be in good condition. Second, no rust, pinholes, dents, leaks, or chemical deposit. Third one is container cap must be free of cracks and sealed tightly. Fourth, container cannot leaks if inverted. And the last one, must keep the container closed. The last one is how to properly dispose of chemical waste. So the first one is pre-disposal procedure, which is the first one is sorted by the compatibility of the chemical waste and putting it into the approved container. Then the cap must be tightened and the content must be ensured and being identified, properly identified. So the lastly, we will dispose, which is the procedure, move the satellite accumulative area, then we call HWC to pick up number, then complete the form or ensure labeling information. Okay, that's all from me.
Okay. So next, I will proceed with PDCA cycle for management of chemical laboratory. So PDCA cycle is a cycle that has been popularized by Dr. Edwards Deming in 1950s, where he realized that this PDCA cycle could be used in improve the production processes during the World War II. Okay, so PDCA cycle stands for plan, do, add, and check. Okay, next. Okay, so plan, do, add, and check for chemical management. For plan, we have to plan for the safety in the lab, such as for the storage of the chemicals based on their hazardous, toxicity, corrosive, and so on. And then the rules and regulations in the laboratory when people are working in the lab. Also the hazard review of the chemicals that we want to store in the lab, and the safety training for workers so that workers know about the safety in the lab area. And then the do, understand the laboratory safety, and the enrichment of chemical at the shape is based on its properties, where the chemical need to be arranged in order of their hazardous and their physical properties. And then the safety signs in the lab area, and the safe working area for lab worker. For air is the safety of the communities, the regulatory impact analysis, and the accident investigation if there is accident that might occur in the lab, and the chemical hazardous data analysis. For the check is the hazard management plan need to be checked and reviewed, and then the lab safety plan review and the regulatory inspection, and the chemical inventory report also need to be checked regularly, and the self inspection in the management of the lab. So that's all about the PDCA cycle and the management of laboratory management. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.